Okay guys, so in today's lesson we're going to learn about the basics of spreadsheets. So personally I must say spreadsheets are one of my favorite things when using computers. Basically a spreadsheet is like a calculator waiting to happen. So you can enter tons of data and it will do calculations, calculate averages, totals, differences, ratios, all kinds of stuff. So today we're just going to look at the basics, but the first things first, we will be using Google Sheets to do this. So when you're in your Google Drive, what you're going to do is you're just going to go to New, and that is how the icon looks for Google Sheets, just so you know. It's the green icon there that has squares on it, not dots. The dots ones are used for Google Forms, so don't get confused. There's the dots. Make sure you use the one with the squares. So going back to the spreadsheet that I have set up for this video, we're just going to talk about a couple of different things. So this is your spreadsheet screen. I just have it on max, so you don't see all the little tabs at the top, just to make it easier for you. So basically these are the terms that we're going to look at right now. So a spreadsheet is basically a screen. It's a software tool or online tool in our case because we're using Google. And it's basically just, it looks like a grid. If you look at it right now, that's what you will see. So all the information in a spreadsheet is organized into cells. So each of these little squares that you see here are cells, and I'll explain how that works. So first, all these numbers that you have that go across 2, 3, 4, there's one up there, it was hiding. All of these are your rows. So this is row 3, for example, this is row 13, this is row 17 and such. Going across the top, we have letters. So this is column A, this is column C, this is column F. A lot of students get confused between rows and columns. So the way I tell them to think about it is think about a pillar. A pillar is like a column, so it's going up and down. So that's going to be column A, column D, for example, and going across are the rows. So we've covered what a column is and what a row is. Where a column and row intersect is where you have a cell. So for example, if I click here right now, you will see that the letter C is kind of dimmed out here, and so is the number 2. So if I was talking to somebody about the spreadsheet and I was referring to the cell, this cell would be called cell C2. So again, a cell is the intersection of a column and a row. So column E intersecting with row 6, this cell would be called cell E6, and that would be its cell address. Next, we have the active cell. So whatever cell that we're currently working on. So if you look, I just clicked on the word cell address. That is cell G4. How do we know? There is a heavy box around the cell that we're working on, and also dimmed out is the letter G and the number 4. So if I were to click for here, for example, my cell address is B9. And again, you will see that this cell is active because there is a heavy border around it. Next, we have a cell pointer. It's the highlighted rectangle surrounding the active cell. So some people refer to this as a heavy border, which I often do. It is actually known as a cell pointer. Makes sense, it's pointing at the cell. You will see that if I just hover below this this arrow that we're used to seeing when we go online is now changed to a hand. What that does is if I hold down and move, I can move the cell that I'm working on. So for example, the word here, rows, if I wanted to move this word, say to the bottom of the list, you'll notice how I have an arrow. I hover towards the edge, and then I get a hand, and I just click and drag to wherever I want it to go. I didn't want it to go here, I could move it back, or I could just hit undo. Okay, so next we have the formula bar. So the formula bar is where a lot of the magic happens. We're going to see this in a bit about how formulas work. But so say, just to make it really simple, in cell A1, I have the number 3. And in the cell A2, I have the number 5. So if you look at the formula bar, when I make cell A1 my active cell, again by clicking on it, and you have the heavy border, so you have the cell pointer there, you will see my formula bar, the number that I typed in shows. When I go here to cell A2, the number that I entered shows. So whatever data is entered in the cell appears here. So if you notice in cell, let's just pick C4, there's no data entered. So it is blank here in the formula bar. Also, so there is data entered here in cell G6. So if I just click that, I had typed in the word cell pointer, and it also appears here in the formula bar. Next going on, we have the word range. A range is basically a number of cells that form a square or a rectangle. So let's just say I had some other values here. I'm just randomly putting in some numbers. Okay, so I have values here in cells A1, B1, A2, B2, A3, B3, A4, B4. When I select these all, so I'm just going to click and hold. So again, I'm not dragging. If you notice, my cursor remains as an arrow. I just click and hold. Let me do that again. And I highlight all of these. So you're going to notice that the values are shaded. And if I was to refer to these cells, say I'm talking to somebody about what I'm working on, these would be titled range A1 to B4. So if you notice, everything between A1 and B4, and if you draw a square around it, all those values are what I'm talking about. So that's what a range is. Ranges will make more sense when we talk about formulas. Going on, so after the range, we have tabs. I know we're used to the tabs at the top when we're using Chrome or whatever web browser that we're looking at. So those are the tabs you're used to. But now that we're talking about spreadsheets, you'll notice all these tabs here at the bottom. So right now is the Spreadsheet Basics tab. Then next is the data types, formatting, etc. If you would like to insert a new tab, all you have to do is click the plus, and it is to add a sheet. So it will go, in this case, goes right after the active sheet that we're working on. And then you can just click it and title it whatever you wish. I'm just going to type it, the words test. And then if I didn't want this here and I want it at the end, I would just click and hold. And again, I can move it to wherever I want. In this case, I will move it to the end. So those are the tabs at the bottom. They're referred to in a spreadsheet. When we're talking about spreadsheets, these are called sheets. So this is the Spreadsheet Basics sheet. This is the formatting sheet, however you would like. You can organize them as you wish, but again, that's what they're referred to as. Now next we have the select all option. So say I have a whole bunch of data I'm working on and I want to format the data. We'll look at formatting in a bit, but the way to actually select all the data on your screen is just to click up here. So this is the cell that we're just going to click. So it's just between the A and the 1, and it's right under the formula bar. So again, when I click that, just look what happens to my screen. Everything gets shaded, and that's what you'd like to do when you want to select all your cells. We're going to talk about formatting in a bit. And the very last thing we're going to talk about right now is scrolling. So you'll see here on the right-hand side, similar to a website, you can scroll. So if you notice, there's tons of rows. So just going real fast, you have about 1,000 rows, and you can add more if you want. And then going across, we have our columns. And they go to Z. You can insert more, and we're going to be talking about inserting columns and rows in a bit. So those are the basics. So to become more familiar with this, just play around and see how it is just to navigate around the screen of a spreadsheet environment.